The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And last time we talked to our next guest, I believe he was in the press box in Omaha, Nebraska at the College World Series. Now here we are a couple weeks later, live from the press box in Seattle, Major League Baseball All-Star Weekend. It's Clinton Yates.
T-Mobile Park is where I am right now. I'm currently, for those of you listening on the radio, using my binoculars to look around the field, and I can see Jamie Moyer, who you might remember from...
Is he still pitching?
No, Jamie Moyer is the head coach for the American League team, facing off against LaTroy Hawkins, who's the head coach for the National League team, in the USA Baseball High School All-American game. So they're on the field now. But it's been a fun day so far, and Seattle is kind of building up its vibe. I made a walk down from Pioneer Square to the ballpark today. It's a fun place for baseball, and it's a fun time for the weekend.
How old is Jamie Moyer? This is now my question.
Well, actually, Jamie Moyer wears number 50. He wears number 50. He's got to be older than 50.
Clinton.
Yes.
Jamie Moyer is 60.
Well,
which kind of
he
tracks.
Pitched in the bigs for a long time, right?
I was going to say, he pitched till he was 104. So the fact that he's only 60 is kind of a miracle.
Let me say something between you and I. He definitely looks like he's 60. So there's that. You know what I mean? But he's a good guy. He gets around the game a little bit. So he's just a little bit of a gray beard now versus what he was in the bigs, which was also a gray beard. But crafty lefties hang around. So we love Jamie Moyer.
Yeah, the definition of crafty lefty.
Yes.
Jamie Moyer.
For sure.
So any of the players on the field in this high school all-star game that we're looking forward to hearing their names called, potentially getting drafted here shortly?
You know, I was thinking about that, and I was going to have a whole list of names, and I don't necessarily know that I do, to be honest. There's so many things happening here this weekend, but I do recommend that you guys watch tonight the HBCU Swingman Classic. It is the all-star game between HBCU teams, sort of divvied up between kind of north and south-ish, if you will. And again, it's not really about the names per se in that game as much as it's about the event itself. Ken Griffey Jr.'s idea to put this on under his Swingman imprint for Nike. So for the kids who are about to arrive here in a little bit and have a luncheon together before they go to BP, it's really an experience unlike anything else. You know, college baseball, as we talked about last week, has its own kind of place, but HBCU baseball in specific is a different sort of brand of operation. Quite frankly, Craig, not everybody who plays HBCU baseball is black. It's just what they play through their educational systems in terms of those institutions. And there's a lot of black kids, obviously, but it's just kind of a different vibe in terms of what the energy is brought to the table. So I'm really excited to see that game tonight. And there should be some names that I think you guys will probably see at some point down the line, but these are not super duper pro draftee situations right now. It's just kind of a fun reason to gather.
Yeah, Clint Yates with us from Seattle, MLB All-Star Weekend kicking off. It's always a weird All-Star Weekend, by the way. It's like All-Star Weekend. By the way, they're still playing regular season games, and the All-Star game's on Tuesday or Wednesday,
right.
Whatever the hell it is.
The timing is awkward, for sure. It's
Tuesday, right? And then Monday's Home Run Derby.
Monday's Home Run Derby.
Yeah, All-Star Weekend. It's a summer weekend. It ends on Wednesday. What are we going to do? What is your favorite event of All-Star Weekend? Because you got the Futures game, you got the Derby, you got the game, you got these other events around it that you just talked about. What's your favorite All-Star Weekend event?
You know, a lot of people were asking me about this online because I was doing an AMA, and people said, oh, we should bring this, that, and the third to the All-Star game. And I don't disagree with that. I wouldn't mind seeing an outfield throwing contest. I wouldn't mind seeing some guys go first to third or whatever, so you can get around the bags the fastest. But the Home Run Derby, to me, is still the draw. You know, I was there at Nats Park when Bryce, in that headband, won that daggone thing.
I own that headband.
Yes, so do I. People forget that was a top 5 moment in Nats history at the time, and I would argue still is. You know what I'm saying? In terms of what the history of that franchise is. The Home Run Derby has legitimate potential for special moments, and it's fantastic. I was there a couple years ago when Vladdy and Pete Alonso went at it. Vladdy didn't even win that thing, and he hit a bazillion of them. Should be a fun night on Monday because Mookie Betts is in it. For those of you hometown listeners, Adley Rutschman is in it from the O's, and J-Rod from the Mariners, hometown guy, is in it as well. I expect an electric atmosphere. And I like watching balls go out of the yard in that particular scenario. Regular baseball games, I don't care about home runs so much. Derby, I do.
Yeah, Mr. J-Rod, a.k.a. Mr. Jordan Heidema for all the World Cup soccer fans out there.
Well played, sir.
How many power couples over the next 5 years are better than Heidema and J-Rod in all of sports?
I mean, it's tough to beat. And if Dansby Swanson wasn't on the injured list, he'd be there as well.
Say Mal is,
Pugh, you know what I'm saying?
Mal is also on the injured list.
You
So
know what I mean?
That's the all-injured couple right now, unfortunately.
The IL list, but they're a pretty good one too. But it's going to be tough to beat them for sure.
Yeah. All right. Clinton Yates with us from Seattle. So we might actually have a pretty significant month here for the Nationals. Barry Svrluga the other day kind of snuck into his reporting about the Nationals and what they might be doing on some of the roster stuff that this Qatari investment into Monumental Sports could help open up some extra funding for Leonsis to close the deal for the Nationals. What do you make of that? Because that would also, the Qatari investment is the first international sovereign wealth fund to invest in major sports, period. It's in the NBA and the NHL by nature of Monumental. How do you think baseball feels about that being the thing that potentially, along with the settlement of the Masson lawsuit recently, or the resolvement of the Masson lawsuit, gets this thing over the line?
This is actually something that I think is going to turn into a very serious thing in Major League Baseball, because we've seen what we'll just call foreign entities moving their dollars into certain sports, and how that's affected things. We can go so far as to even go to soccer on the other side of the pond in England, completely revolutionized the competitive balance in terms of different teams. I personally don't love it for a lot of different reasons, and it's not necessarily just where the money is coming from, and it's not even a personal shot at Theodore. I just don't think the same person owning 4 teams in the same town, that many teams, in the same town, makes sense. For me, that balance does not work very well for me as a fan. And now, the specific characters involved, that's one thing. The other ways that this is going to happen, I don't think that MLB is going to be that pressed to get outside money into their system. Now, look, I'm not implying that there's some sort of moral high ground, not by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that with all that's going on with Leonsis and all that's going on with that team, I don't know, man. I don't think they're in some big rush to sell them because, it's not like the team is any good, which is a whole separate discussion with the draft coming up on Sunday, which is actually, sidebar, going to be held at Lumen Field on the football field for those of you NFL fans. That's a whole separate discussion because, quite frankly, if I'm a Nationals fan right now, this team is just not even close. It's not even about competitive. It's about the fact that the draft process has not produced anything for, it seems like, 5 whole seasons. There's a stat that I can't remember off the top of my head, but the number of homers that the guys who have been picked by the Nats is over the last 5 years professionally is drastically lower than every other team, just on a basic power front. They're not that good at the draft process. And so that's my larger concern with the Nationals right now. And I don't even necessarily know that that's a guy like a Rizzo's fault. It's just one of those things where philosophically and foundationally, if you're not good at it, you're not good at it. And so the product on the field is as big a concern as anything with the people upstairs right now for the Washington Nationals.
Well, so how much are those things tied, though? Because how much of this is kind of the R&D of, we don't have the baseball analytics people, we don't have some of the other research and development things that other clubs have, and that the learners are not as willing to spend and invest and be revolutionary in these ways, or even keep up with the Joneses in these ways, because they're also looking to sell the team.
I think it's tied a lot, but I also don't necessarily know that I trust Theodore with that on the other side of it either. It's not like he knows a ton about baseball. It's not like he knows a ton about sports anyway. And he's always been upfront about that. He's a fan who likes to put people in position as best he can in order to make money and make his teams better. Whether or not he can do that with a baseball team is another question. It's just plain not as easy. It's a longer season. Everything takes a longer time to sort of grow out of the ground, and I do think they're related, but I also don't know that just canning Rizzo would be the answer to this. If I'm somebody who's coming in, I would like to have a little continuity between the old squad and the new. I don't know that turning it over immediately is going to be the answer either way. So, it's one of those unfortunate things where you say to yourself, I'm glad 2019 happened, or else this would have been miserable for a decade and a half, make it 2, but it did. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, Clint Yates with us from Seattle for a few more minutes. MLB All-Star Weekend. You mentioned the draft coming up on Sunday. You were just obviously out there for the College World Series. I know a couple of those names going to go high, potentially on the Nats' radar. Who do you think they go with?
I think they go with Dylan Cruz. He won the Golden Spikes for LSU, and I mean, if he gets to 2, that for that matter, but he's an all-around player who, when you look at him, you don't necessarily say he's going to do this or he's going to do that. You just know he's going to be on the ball field every day, and that's the best part about him. He reached base every single game this season, including going back into the season before that for LSU. The guy's a gamer. And, see him in Omaha, you know that he's a big-time guy that can get it done, under the bright lights. But, again, the draft is such a crapshoot in any sport, particularly in baseball. And, hopefully they'll get somebody good out of it who can, at the very least, contribute. Because right now that's looking difficult.
Right. So the other big name is Paul Skeens. What do you make of him? Because it's probably those guys going 1-2.
Skeens can throw. I don't love taking pitchers that high. That's a personal situation in terms of my particular style of analysis. But if I'm getting a guy, if there's an option for me to get a guy that can play every day, I'm taking the guy that can play every day. That's pretty much how I break that down. Skeens is a big leaguer, no doubt. But I prefer everyday guys.
All right, and finally, the nonsense portion of this here weekly interview. All right, Seattle checklist. Will you go see the Space Needle, or have you seen it before?
I have not gone to see the Space Needle, but I'm going to the market where they throw the fish.
That was going to be my next one. Are you going to Pike's Place?
I don't know that I'm going to throw the fish, but I've been watching a lot of people cut fish. For whatever reason, I've been watching people fillet fish on TikTok, ardently over the past couple weeks.
Have you been doing some more cooking?
I made a fish soup the other day. This is another story. But,
okay.
Yeah, but I made it with whole fish, and I made the stock with the eyeball. It was crazy. Anyway, so I'm going to go to the fish market and see some guys cut some fish.
This is the July content we live for. You want to do a second segment on your fish soup?
We can do that next week, but
okay.
I might have made a second soup by next week as well. So there's that. Yes.
And then finally, the last Seattle thing that there's kind of two more. They're all in that Pike's Place area. Are you going to go to the gum wall?
I don't know what that is.
It's gross. It's just people put their old chewed gum there. It's a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
not.
I don't know why.
On that.
And then are you going to go get them? I can't remember the name of the place. They don't need extra advertising, but there's a famous mac and cheese joint across the street from the fish market.
Maybe. I'm not huge on mac and cheese. It's a Thanksgiving side to me. It's not like a big part of my...
If you're going to go get one, though, that's pretty good.
I might have to do that. But yeah, Seattle's a cool place. This is a great place for an all-star game. You know what I mean? And
it's a great town.
Ken Griffey Jr. being a part of the proceedings and being here has everybody really jazzed up. So, lucky me.
Yeah, I will say the mac and cheese hits a little different when it's 39 degrees and misting, which is 10 months out of the year in Seattle, but you're in one of the two that it's not. So maybe you skip that one and save it for a football trip.
Good point.
All right, we'll talk to you next week about fish soup.
All right, goodbye, Gregory. Have a great weekend.
Bye.